And we're back. It's time for another Good Vibes. I'm Martin Falls, joined by Debbie Cox DeNova. We always have a great time talking to Debbie. Listen to this topic: setting authentic boundaries. So, okay, I don't know if this is where we're going, but as a kid,
Mhm.
Mom used to say, Martin, Mike, Leonard, all the kids, you can go as far as El Paso,
Uh-huh.
or you could go as far as Mulberry School.
Yes.
Don't go after. And he used to ask my brother, why Mulberry School? It's only 100 more feet to the Intracoastal.
Uh-huh.
And he went, that's because everybody goes smoke at Sandy Beach.
Mm,
I went, oh, Mama doesn't want us going to smoke.
that's it.
Authentic boundaries.
Authentic boundaries. So that's a really good way to open because when we think about boundaries, it's really kind of a line of demarcation that says, like, this is the safe zone, and outside of this is the unsafe zone, right? And really, it's kind of if you think about like the fence that goes around your property, it's the line of demarcation, the boundary line that lets other people know this is my property and this is your property. If you don't have those lines where it's kind of like I'm not sure where my line ends, and then you have a problem, right? Because one person feels like you're encroaching on my space and the other person on the other.
Lines of demarcation.
Yes. So the specific way that we're going to talk about boundaries today is about setting authentic boundaries. And this comes from Heidi Priebe. Okay. So it's not the only way, it's actually a really much more authentic way to set boundaries. And it really isn't even about setting boundaries as much as honoring boundaries because we all have our own value system. And at some point in time, sometimes we find ourselves giving ourselves away or self abandoning in order to make relationships, friendships, relationships at work for us. Okay. And what's really happening right there is that there's a little like inner child part of ourself that is willing to take down all the boundaries in order to keep connectivity with people or to keep the peace. And one of the number one reasons that people are so reluctant to set boundaries or keep boundaries is because they have a negative association to boundaries. So they have a positive association to saying yes, and they have a negative association to saying no. But the Arbiter Institute has something called the way of being model. And so if you're at home and if you have a piece of paper and you want to draw a quadrant on your page, so you're going to draw a line straight down the middle of the page and then across. We've done this before, right? You create those four quadrants. And then on the top left, you're going to write loving intention above the top left. And then on the right is selfish intentions. So across the top, loving intentions, selfish intentions. And then along the side, it's soft behaviors and hard behaviors. Okay. This is really just to illustrate that saying no and saying yes has nothing to do inherently by itself with being good or bad or being having good intentions or bad. People can feel your intentions, right? And so if you create those quadrants, what you find is that the upper left hand quadrant you have something called soft loving. This is really easy for us to understand when someone is saying yes out of a place of kindness and love, right? Yes, of course you can have some ice cream, or yes, I would love to come on vacation with you. Soft loving, right? And then down at the bottom right hand quadrant is hard selfish. This is also very easy for us to understand, right? When someone's just being a jerk and we're like, I'm gonna out of resentment, I'm gonna say no to you, or no, you can't come to my party. Or, you can understand hard and selfish. What we have a harder time understanding is the upper right hand quadrant, which is soft selfish, and the lower left hand quadrant, which is hard loving. But if you think about soft selfish, there are ways if you're setting an intention to basically be soft, right? And also from a selfish place. For example, you basically go, yeah, go watch TV because you don't want to deal with your child, right? Like you give in to what they want, or you dismiss them and say, yeah, you can do this, not because it's for their best interest, but because you're just I don't want to deal with you right now. Or they're throwing a fit because they want candy in the store, and you're just like, all right, take the candy because you're too embarrassed by the experience here that people looking at you in order to do what's best for your child in that moment. So yeah, take the candy and just be quiet, right? So that's soft
That
selfish.
never happened to me.
Right. Me either. It would not go well with Paul and Kaylin.
Wait till we get to the car.
Right. But then we have on the lower left-hand quadrant the hard and loving. So if you think about it, like how can we have a hard and loving situation? Well, can you imagine any scenario where you're shoving a child and the child skins their knee and you're doing it in a loving way? Maybe not off the bat, but then if there's a car coming, the most loving thing you can possibly do is shove the child out of the way. And of course, we're not promoting violence toward children at all, but it's just to demonstrate that
Saving lives.
right. Sometimes saying yes is selfish intention, and sometimes saying yes is a generous and loving intention, and sometimes saying no is loving intention, and
Tough love.
Right. And sometimes it is a selfish intention. So
Hmm.
it's the intention and the come from place that you have that's really important. And so when we're talking about our boundaries, it's really about you honoring what's in your best interest as well as the other person's best interest.
Yeah.
The other thing that people do is they convolute setting or keeping boundaries with setting expectations.
Hmm.
Expectations is what I want you to do. I'm expecting you to do for me, right?
Hmm.
Boundaries is what are you going to do? So if this, then what, right? So if somebody steps on my boundaries in this specific way, if they speak harshly to me in a relationship, if they curse me out or something,
Hmm.
then I will remove myself from this relationship. Or if this person forgets my birthday, then I will have a conversation about how important birthdays are to me, or whatever
Right.
it is, right? So it's what your area that the of self authenticity that feels like, okay, I'm being taken care of, my inner child is being taken care of. And also, I am telling you what I'm going to do rather than setting expectations, which expectations can be good as well. But when we're speaking specifically about boundaries, it's really about you understanding where that line of demarcation is to keep yourself feeling like you're keeping your dignity
Hmm.
and that you're keeping your authenticity, and you're also helping the other person do the same.
If they forget my birthday, they better not tell me because I'll forget it too. I remember other birthdays sometimes, not always, but I'm bad with birthdays. Told your mom wouldn't let us go past Mulberry School.
Mhm.
Years later, I sat mom and dad down in a funny manner, and I told her, Mom, you remember how you didn't let me go to Sandy Beach? She goes, Yeah, I sure do. I said, Well, I bought it. I bought a big piece of property right on the Intracoastal.
That's it.
They both laughed. I guess the moral of the story, I was old enough to make that decision now.
You were old enough to set your own boundaries, which
Right.
is really great,
Yeah.
and that's a really, really powerful thing because at once upon a time you were a child who could not handle what your mom perceived as, or she perceived you could not handle what was on the
She was
outside of the
right.
boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And now you're an adult, and so your boundaries have shifted. And so
Hmm.
this is really when we talk about setting boundaries, what we're doing is talking about protecting the inner child version of yourself that may, for example, be excited about making plans with someone, right? Like
Hmm.
making plans, and this person always just cancels last minute or just doesn't show up, right?
Hmm.
And so you find yourself in this relationship with this person who's unreliable, who says they're going to be someplace and they just don't show up and they don't communicate, right?
Hmm.
And so what you are thinking about then is this little inner child within yourself that gets super excited about connecting with this person and having fun. And maybe this person is so fun when you actually do connect, you don't want to lose the relationship. It's about protecting that part of yourself by having a conscious conversation where you actually express your boundaries so that you can keep your dignity and your authenticity and see if you can actually work and negotiate the terms of the relationship so that you both can move forward in a way that feels reciprocal and that you're having an actual equally beneficial relationship. It doesn't just work for one person.
You know what my dad told me one time? If you meet them in a ballroom, they'll leave you in a ballroom.
Yes.
What he was telling me is the boundary is the ballroom.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not
Exactly.
saying it happened to everybody. I know some people met in a bar, they still happily married.
Yes.
But I guess that was an old fashioned expression.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's all, it's all about where you find your own personal boundaries to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So, Heidi Priebe says that there are a series of questions that you can ask yourself. If you find yourself feeling like I probably need to have a conversation with this person about boundaries, about my authentic boundaries, and really checking within yourself, where do you feel like you're self-abandoning in a relationship? Do you feel like there's some way that you're participating in the relationship that's inauthentic, right? Maybe you're pretending to be happy when underneath you are resenting them, or that you're giving yourself away. You're allowing them to set terms on the relationship that just don't feel good to you. You're already encroaching upon that. So it's knowing exactly where you're willing to participate, where the line for your participation ends and resentment begins. Because you don't want to be in a relationship that where you're pretending to be happy, right? You're putting on a smiley face and trying to continue to be connected when underneath resentment is growing.
You know, the perfect relationship is when you tell your girlfriend or the girlfriend tells the boyfriend, I really am uncomfortable when you do this. And they go, I'm glad you said that because I'm uncomfortable when you do that too. So I'm glad we got that
Yes.
out the way. Then the other one's going like, well, how dare you tell me what to do? And you're going, oh, here we go.
Right. So this is
Yeah.
where having conscious conversations really
Yeah.
comes into play, like in a secure way, right? The first question you can ask is, what do I expect out of this relationship? So what is my vision for this relationship? Usually you're not setting boundaries with people that you don't want to have anything to do with. If you're talking to somebody and you are like, I don't want to talk to this person ever
Right.
again, you're not going to bother having a boundaries conversation because
Mhm.
you're just going to leave, right? If you want to set boundaries, it usually means that you want to actually protect the relationship and you want to move forward with it. So knowing where you see the relationship going and having that conversation with the other person to see if you guys are on the same page, especially when you're having romantic relationships or
Mhm.
friendships. Like I really see this as like going long term. Are you seeing it the same way as me, right? Having
Mhm.
that conversation. The next thing is what's currently in the way? Like you want this relationship to go this way. What's currently in the way for you? What's currently in the way for them? Having that discussion
Mhm.
so that you can actually put it on the table. You know what? There's something I've been holding a little resentment. Maybe they're holding resentment towards you. Same
Right.
thing, right? And
Mhm.
you have an open place where you can converse about it and clear the air in that way. And then number three is what would it take to get there? So how do we navigate this situation? So maybe going forward, we communicate in a specific way. Maybe if you're an avoidant attachment style, you say, okay, listen, I'll text you every single day before bedtime, or whatever it is, so that the other person can feel like they're seen and connected to on a regular basis, right? And then number four, this is very important. If the other person is unwilling to come to the table with the boundaries, how am I going to protect my inner child?
Mhm.
Because if your inner child was if it was an actual child, if it was an actual child that was making friends with somebody that was treating them poorly or that was not respecting their boundaries, you would have a conversation with that child about maybe this isn't the best kind of friend, or maybe we need to renegotiate how
Mhm.
close we are to this friend just so that we can protect the feelings from being hurt. What often you're going to have to be willing in these situations to have discomfort in the moment,
Yeah.
emotional discomfort, and be with the vulnerability of that conversation
Mhm.
in order to protect yourself long term from emotional discomfort that's actually much more gut wrenching and
You,
and
you
compromises your
remember
feeling
how
dignity.
tough it was when we were kids and you want to go out with a girl and you walk up and they all say, it's got to go steady, like when I'm at St. Francis.
Right.
So I never forget, it was Valentine's Day. And I gave the girl a card with $1 in it.
Oh.
She sent me 4 quarters back. She thought I needed change.
Can
That's a
you?
true story. I didn't communicate, I
You
guess.
didn't communicate, right?
Right. I
That
don't want the money back.
That's great.
Well, you live and learn,
You
right?
do, absolutely. And it
All
all
right.
comes down to communication, conscious communication about what the expectations and all of that.
All right. Great topic. And what are we talking about next week?
I don't know yet.
We'll come up with a good one.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Debbie.
Mhm.
All right. There you have it. We will be back next week with another Good Vibes. So you stay tuned. And don't forget, watch all these on Facebook and YouTube and share them with your friends. These are great topics. So if your girlfriend said whatever or did something, send her the link. All right. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next week.